Okay, so it's Andrew, Sean, and Craig here again for our Four Walls podcast, number 2. So just in case anyone has firstly tuned in and tuned in again, great, you've heard this bit. But if you've got any new listeners, it's good to set the scene and tell a little bit more about what Four Walls is. Andrew, over to you.
Well, of course, the first clue there is there's another podcast to listen to, folks. if you listen,
go back.
Number 2, sorry. Four Walls, very simple. As we keep saying, it's the opportunity within these four walls to speak openly and honestly about topics of the day. We'll try and be as respectful as possible, but we want to be as honest as possible. We don't really know what we're going to be talking about, but there's always something going on that's worth talking about, and we've kind of given ourselves permission to talk about them in the way that works for us. So forgive us if we maybe go over the top sometimes, but it's all part of a good experience, and it's all meant in good spirit. So what's on our minds this week, folks? I don't have a script. I've got a blank page in front of me. So what are we going to talk about? Any thoughts?
I've got lots of things, but again, I have to temper that, obviously. So
well, it's Friday. It's Friday, and that means nobody is actually at work today.
Well, that's a good point, because
everyone's at home.
That's either the funkiest office on the planet, Andrew, or it's your house, it's your home.
Truth be told, it's my house. So
that's disappointing because people would have an office envy. And
I mean, it's a bit of an obvious topic, I know, because everyone is talking about hybrid working and working from home and so on. And it always seems that I'm not going to say who this is, first off, but I had a conversation with somebody who decided that the best structure for the company, an organization he worked for, was for him to work from home on a Monday and a Friday. That was the best structure for the business. Which is
do you know that's a really popular structure perception for individuals?
It does seem to be. It does seem to be. I also saw something which I thought was slightly more serious, which was how some people really take to it, and I struggled hugely. I mean, I know in lockdown that I was speaking to people within a client organization because we were going through some sort of safety program with them. That was all online, and this guy hadn't spoken to anyone apart from us online and the gas lady who came to check his meter for 3 months.
Wow,
I know that's COVID, and we're not
but still. COVID. So he lived. He lived alone.
So he lived alone.
Okay.
And I've come across recently as well, sort of student population, recent graduates who have existed online for their degree, still at home alone, and that just feels like that's a difficult situation.
Yeah, it is.
So it's not just a company thing; it's an individual.
Yeah.
Thing as well, I don't know what the scale of it is.
Well, it's huge.
Huge.
In a word, it is.
Have you got your Ready Reckoner there of useful facts?
Let's have a look. Yeah. Talk amongst yourselves.
Craig's the stats guy today. Opinionated wise, I think it's huge. I mean, we've talking over the last few years about how a killer in certainly elderly people is loneliness, but that's no longer just elderly people. I don't think. I think it stems right
Craig,
across.
you were mentioning this before we came on, that Tap into Talent event we did a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I recall, but there was somebody at that was saying that they had a lot of people that were working from home, and now it's part of their hybrid offer to people. And he said, it's great, everyone's very motivated and everyone's saying they're being very productive. But I don't know if you remember what this guy said. He said, my worry is they're being very productive at the wrong thing.
Yes. I know. Now there's a couple things that came out of that, because there was that as well, which comes down to just accountability and checking. There isn't a right or wrong answer. There was another one who was, if you remember, it was very stringent on, look, no, we don't do homework at all.
Yeah, that's right.
Everyone here. But then you flipped it, and you remember we asked both, and one said, no, we've got a really great retention rate. We don't see. The other one said that they have a relatively high turnover of staff. So it wasn't particularly difficult to attract them, but it was more difficult to keep them because it's become the norm now and again, it's not one size fits all because, not like you said, not everyone wants to work, in the office all the time. Not everyone wants to work at home all the time. But you get some that are just very, very clear. Actually, do you know what? I don't want to do either. I want to be in the office, 100% of the time, or I want to be at home. So it's how do you get that mix? A really tricky one is there doesn't seem to be, or we found this, there's not a right or wrong answer.
I think it comes down to ask the people. Ask them.
I agree
what
with
do you
that.
want?
And the
What do you
difficulty
want to do?
is, right, here's the one that was really put to us. It's okay if, for example, you're an IT business or you're a finance business or you're
Yeah.
doing something where you can be anywhere to do it. For what I do, for example, I like having an office. I like going in, but I don't spend all my time there. Andrew, you can do what you do from anywhere. But if you're manufacturing or you're producing something, you have to be there, right? So I think
Yep.
where the really difficult part of conversation comes from, and I know that this is from an HR perspective where they've struggled, it's when you've got office staff that say, well, actually, we don't need to be here. We can be equally effective and we can prove it. We can be equally effective from home or in the office. But then you've got your manufacturing, production, workshop staff saying, well, actually, we'd like to do that. But does that not simply come down to the fact that your job doesn't allow it?
Yeah.
Your job doesn't allow it. We can't offer that.
Yeah.
You can't do what you do at home. Is it just as simple as saying that and that shuts down the conversation?
I think so. Because take it from my wife's perspective, she's a teacher. Now
Yeah.
she is envious of me being able to work from home, but she understands that she just simply can't do that.
Well, I agree, but there's a university that will remain unnamed, that during COVID, the lecturers, and it's quite a prestigious university, the lecturers were obviously doing their lectures to keep the students going. And bear in mind, you've got students, international students globally, that pay a hell of a lot of money to go to this prestigious, I will try not to give it away, prestigious university.
No, don't say the name.
Then the lecturers, because they managed to do it semi-effectively during COVID in a forced situation, when everyone was called back into work, you had up to 40%, I'm going to say 40%, but it was high. It was under 50, but it was a high percentage of lecturers that were almost blankly refused. They were trying to refuse to go back to work on the grounds that, well, they proved that they could deliver their work effectively from home. They say, but that's not what people are paying for. That's not the curriculum. That's not what people expect from a university. But they absolutely took it as far as union and occupational health involvement, to actually get to the point of clarifying that actually, do you know what it's the fact that they had to go through a process, I find disgraceful.
Ridiculous.
Because it's actually relatively straightforward. You're a lecturer, your duty and job is to be face-to-face delivering that to students.
With all due respect to all university lecturers out there, having been a lecturer in a past life, I feel you've actually hit on a good example of a difficult problem, because this is not about whether lecturers want to work from home for their occupational health or anything.
No, it wasn't at all.
Whether or not the learning experience of the students is effective. And, a lot of the times, okay, we don't want to keep going back to COVID, but a lot of the time through COVID, the teaching methodologies weren't very good because we didn't have the tools to do it.
And students are still struggling.
So basically, sending people a PowerPoint slide pack to read or talking over it, it's not a particularly great learning experience. Hello, dog.
Hello, dog.
So I think the decision making applies whatever the situation is. If you got customers, and most businesses, I guess, have customers. Pretty every public sector has got customers. Every school and university's got customers. That's your start point. Work back from them. How do we ensure they get what they need in the best way possible?
Which is what it should be.
It seems to me, and now maybe I'm being a bit harsh on everyone. If we look at the student experience over the last 5 years, it's not been as good, as
not at all
might have been.
And then there's been there's stats that actually show the impact that that's had and made, on students, on results, on learning and things like that, with people having to, or choosing to, and or having to go back a year in some instances from an education perspective because they've lost so much, because you're relying, and again, we're now going back depending on what age group, but you're relying on someone to take you through that experience and take you through the curriculum. You're not equipped to do it yourself, and parents aren't either. So there's a lot of kids that really suffered with that, from taking, having it handed over to parents from teachers, not from teachers, but because of the situation, saying, look, it's your responsibility to make sure that your child does their homework, keeps up to date with with what they're doing. Well, teachers go through a four-year period of getting a degree, and then I think another year or 2 years in some instances in specialist subjects to be able to deliver and educate children. So, to expect parents to be able to do that is ridiculous.
Yeah. And I don't know whether this is a thing or not, but this is a quote from this week. I was going to look out before we came on. I haven't. Somebody was talking about micro social signals.
What a new one on me.
That's the thing. But it sounds like quite a good thing.
It does.
That kind of idea that when you're in a group of people...
Sounds like a name for a group, an indie group or something.
Micro and the social signals.
So what is it, Andrew?
Well, it was just, the guy was just basically saying that when you're in the office or when you're working together, it's not that you spend time thinking about each other. You just pick up the vibe. I mean, Craig, you and I had that experience last year when we were working with a client, that something happened in the room that we tested and it revealed something pretty important.
Yeah.
I don't think that would have come out over a Zoom or a Teams call. It would have just carried on.
Definitely. I know what you mean. Yeah.
But this guy was working back in terms of, funnily enough, his care for the people who worked for him, because he felt that they weren't learning, as it were, the rules of the game, the interactions and understanding and picking up on things when people work together. That it was all very flat, two-dimensional for them. So, as I say, he called them micro-social signals, but I think just this being social, isn't it? Or socializing for people.
Yeah. Well,
and having a conversation, that suddenly, we're talking about working from home, that suddenly goes in a completely different direction. But then you find that, that was quite useful because it revealed something, how we made we don't realize it.
The art of conversation.
I was picking up this. So when we said about the home office life, so here's some interesting stuff. So working from home, so it says it's a modern phenomenon. So there you go. It's a modern phenomenon. Prior to 2020, so look at this. In 1980s, home working, so these are stats that were taken, those in employment reported about less than 2%, 1.5% that worked mainly at home. By 2019, it tripled to 4.5%. Reporting that they worked from home during 2020 obviously rose to about 50%. But so this is saying mainly, but let's see if we see after lockdown. 50 of the biggest UK employers have said that they have no plans to return all staff to the office full time. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
21% of people said they never want to work from home again. Right? That's interesting.
No, I'm not in that one.
19% said they want to work from home 5 days a week. So that's all the time. Over 55, so again, this is from the Home Office Life. This is not just plucked from my ass. Over 55s are most likely to want to work from home permanently. Okay. 16 to 24-year-olds favour work in the office. That doesn't surprise me.
That does surprise me, actually.
But 85% of employees currently working from home want a hybrid approach of both home and office work. Now that's the big one, because that 85% is big, right? It's really, really big. Now, and go on with more stats of this, but I think those are quite interesting.
We'll turn it back and say the one that got me there was 16 to 24-year-olds want to be in the office. I would have thought that would be
no. You see, I don't, and I'll tell you why I don't. Because they're used to it. Certainly, if you think coming from 16, 24, what have you got? They've come away from school, college, or university. So they're used to being in an environment surrounded by their peers and people they can talk to. You stick people that is directly in an environment like that where they're used to being around people all day to being stuck in their house, and you look at that, I would be interested, this is where we need a researcher right there to look at the mental health statistics of 16 to 24-year-olds pre and post-COVID, right? Because I think there's a direct impact, and it's about social interaction. That's what that's about. It's not about being in the office or the workplace per se. It's about being around people.
True, but if you look at their free time, what they do more often than not, certainly, I don't know, there's no statistic to back this up, but certainly from personal perspective, is a lot of them are gamers that talk to people online.
Right, yeah, that's an interesting one, because that's seen as I'm just going to be chilling with my friends. Okay, where are you going? My bedroom.
Exactly. Yeah.
I regularly have this, having 17, 14 and almost 11-year-old, where you hear lots of conversation and talking and think, oh, who's that? Who've they
Who
got
they
in their
got
room?
there?
Nobody. It's a headset. Or they've got, even better, this is a new one, right? I'm not a gamer, but
No, I mean,
so they've got a headset, they're gaming, they've got their phone on speaker, FaceTiming or whatever they do
do you know
with
what? Yeah,
their
my nephew does
friends
this.
in this, doing the same thing with their headsets on, so they can kind of see each other as they're talking to each other. What's that about? What's that
That's
about?
cool. Is that not called multitasking? That's quite impressive.
No, let's not turn it into a pause. It is quite
I
impressive.
call it quite weird, if I'm honest.
I was like, what's going on? Why not just go and do something again? Go to one another's
Seems
house.
pointless.
But so why do that? I can sit here in my boxer shorts.
Yeah, that seems pointless to me.
Are we guilty of stereotyping here?
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, completely. I
100%.
thought that would make an excellent episode, but it's one we possibly might not be able to air. That
True.
Stereotyping would be a great subject. But yes, that's what we're doing.
Because I mean, you're right. I've no idea whether there's any stats around these things, but it's quite interesting. You said that 20% of people,
Yeah.
or 19, I think, 19% of people never want to do it ever again.
Yeah.
21% of people want to do it all the time. So for me, that's the opposite end of a distribution curve of some.
It is funny, and over 55s are most likely to want to work from home permanently.
It's
I
ridiculous.
wonder why that is.
The over 55s thing, I don't
Yeah, I'm
understand.
surprised. Surprised me. I've
What
always wanted
happens
a bit
at
of a
55?
hybrid.
Where does this 55 number come from?
Probably because they made the stat look good.
Why is it not 54 or 72 or
Oh,
46?
this is great. I'm just going to fire more stats.
Yeah, that's fair.
40% of American workers prefer to work in a hybrid model. The UK, 58%. Now, that's not
Well,
really that.
before we jump into that, I need to establish what the hell hybrid actually means. What's the threshold for a hybrid work?
Well, I think it is. Well, this is actually what we asked. There isn't one, actually. Hybrid literally is as simplistic as you have a mix of home and office working. So you
Okay.
can either have completely flexible hybrid working, right? Or you have set. It tends to be set hybrid working. What we tend to see, and Andrew, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but you tend to have a 3 days office, 2 days, not, or a 4 days office, 1 day home. That tends to be the
Okay.
models that we've seen working.
I'm going to throw a spanner in the works because
You do.
in my previous employment, I was classed as a hybrid worker.
You
And
never spent any time in the office.
I was down in the office 2 days, mainly because it was so far away, so I had to stay in a hotel
Yeah.
every 3 months. And I was classed as hybrid. Now, I would argue that's not hybrid at all. That's
I would say
remote working.
that's remote working.
That's
That's
remote.
definitely
Yeah.
remote
But
working.
that's what I was classed as.
Unless
There's a metaphor here, isn't there?
there's always a metaphor.
I'm now thinking of a hybrid car. So how does a hybrid car work? The petrol engine or the diesel engine recharges the electric engine. So
Yeah.
is hybrid work, it just about a change is as good as the rest? That if you work from home for a couple of days, it recharges your batteries, or if you go into the office for a couple of days, it recharges
Well,
your
what I would say is because it was so far apart when I was down there every 3 months, right? Because the time difference was like, 3 months each time. When I went to the office, I never did any work. I spent all the time catching up with people.
Well, this is another thing, right? And
It's true.
the other thing that you find as well. Now, here's one that no one really talks about: hybrid working. So what you've had is you've had offices that have or businesses that have downsized in terms of office space because of COVID. So you've had to furlough, then let people go, right? They've downsized the office, cost cutting, all the rest of it. But then, markets picked up, economy's risen, they have then expanded again. So rather than thinking, oh God, how do we do this? They've offered hybrid working, hot desking. Because what they've done is they didn't want to get a bigger premises, so they said, right, okay, do you know what? What we'll do now? It's a bit of a logistical nightmare internally, but that's quite a clever way to do it.
I think
Because
so.
what you're doing is, so you're taking something to be a negative, because no one wants a hot desk, right? People want, if they're in the office, they want to come in and say, this is my desk.
This is my
I don't want
space,
someone
yeah.
to see someone else's crap there, because that's going to annoy me before I start my shift. But if it's put to you the case of, look, what we'll do is you work two days in the office, you work 3 days in the office. It's not really hot desking, but it works for both parties. I've seen a couple of what I would class as clever businesses using that model.
But with that comes drawbacks, right? Now,
Yeah.
I'm going back to a previous employer. Now, I'm not going to name the employer, but this is
We're not naming anyone today. Eventually,
No.
we'll get out of that habit and just.
I struggle with that, but
Yeah.
I'm doing well.
I really don't want to name them, but you can see who they are.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to name them because I don't agree with what they're doing, and I really don't want to stir up anything. But essentially, what they did, they the leadership were dead against home working. They're like dead against it. But then COVID happened and it forced them into it, right? It forced them into it. And then they realized, actually, we're performing better because people not only are working from home, but they're having to prove themselves because they're not being overlooked. So they had to prove it. So the numbers spoke for themselves, right? But then it ended COVID. And then the leadership went, you know what, we want people back in the office. But because they did that, they've then limited the radius of where they hire from. So in the UK, for example, I wouldn't have got the job had it not been COVID, because I started mid-COVID. Now they've went from an entire island of people that potentially could work there to a radius of round about 50 miles.
Well, I've experienced something like working for my client. And on that, so here's I start relating to this is really interesting. So after COVID, fully flexible companies, so companies offering full flexibility in terms of working scenarios, they managed to grow their headcount by 5.6%. Hybrid companies managed to grow their headcount by 4.1%, but full-time office companies only managed to grow by 2.6%. So that's less than half of fully flexible companies.
So I'm going to throw a spanner in, like Sean did, and just say that proves to me that fully home working and hybrid companies need more people because they're less efficient or effective.
That's a really, really good point, because but they put it as an attractive point. What I've experienced is, doing search. When we have been working with businesses, so there's two things. One, if you're hiring and you need a specific skill set, if it's fully office based, then your pool of where you're going to find that person is very, very limited. We worked with a client before, if you remember, Andrew, a really, really credible, great brand, but they were in an area that didn't have a great talent pool. If you're looking at things like manufacturing, production, but that's what they had to do, because the remit was we need them fully office based. But as they grew, their profile grew. We were feeding back, well, look, this is what you're getting here, but these are the sort of people you're able to attract if you go a little bit further afield. And there was a pushback from the board. Eventually, they broke that down and tried it. Funnily enough, it's worked really well. So what they've managed to do now is then say, right, okay, within reason, as long as people are committing to X amount of time in the office, their ability to hire top talent now is really, really increased. And you flip that around with here. I've seen genuinely people that have been attracted to a position, and I've seen it firsthand, where they've been, really like this, like the company, like the role, what are the work, and this is senior. We're talking functional leadership up to board, in between that level, saying, right, well, actually, if it's Monday to Friday full time, then it's not for me, because I don't. It's not needed.
Do you think we're kind of? It was interesting. You talking about limiting the opportunity to find people and so on. It sounds, are we kind of constraining our opportunities here? If people are just working within
I don't think so.
time, I'm just intrigued. I don't know the answer. I just wonder whether sometimes we don't get the same level, for instance, of innovation or creativity. Maybe we get more. If it's very transactional work, I see how that happens, and I see how you can measure productivity and so on. But are there any missing ingredients from that actually we haven't been able to measure yet, and we don't know?
Potentially, potentially. I mean, from my perspective, I wouldn't go to a company that requires me in the office full time. I just wouldn't do it. I feel like I need to be able to work from home now, and there's a couple of reasons for it. Mainly because I've built my work-life balance around it. COVID forced me into that, but I don't want to have to change that again. But the other side of the coin is if it's requiring creativity, like you mentioned there, Andrew, I work best with like that kind of thing without distraction. And if I'm in the office, there's a lot of distractions.
Well, I get that, but aren't we just describing difference and diversity? Because
massively, yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of people would say, well, I can't, I need to be around people because that's where the ideas come from. That's how I solve problems and so on. Now, simplistically, are we talking about introversion and extroversion? I don't know.
Well, here's something, Andrew, on that as well, funnily enough.
Is it, oh, right, okay. Mr. Statistician.
As we're talking, but this will be interesting to get your guys' views on this. So 40% of home workers reported that they were able to get as much done as they were 6 months earlier. So this was after home working. So 29% said that they got more done, but 30% said that they felt their productivity had fallen. So this is interesting.
I think I get more done working from home.
30% of people said that they found an increase in their hours. Now I agree with that.
I know, I totally agree with
I definitely agree with that.
Switch off.
But whilst it's not set hours, I found now I'm the same as you, Sean, same as you, Andrew. I have an office, a specific office set up, but when I didn't, I found it was almost impossible to switch off.
You lose track of the time, don't you?
Yeah, and whilst you would maybe go away and do something in between, you were always back in front of the laptop or the desktop after that and thinking, God, that's a whole day blended in.
And it's sometimes into late hours as well. You're talking 10, 11 at night.
I remember speaking to somebody, a finance person, and she was saying that she was feeling stressed working from home for the reasons you guys have just stated. She kept working. And somebody advised her, well, to switch your computer off at 5 o'clock. Just switch it off, 5 o'clock, stop. It seems reasonable advice on the face of it. And as we got talking, I said, where is your computer? And she said, it's on the dining room table. I said, so the computer is sitting there nagging at you. It's off, but it's nagging at you.
But it's true. Yeah, that's when you need a shut off, I think.
So as we discussed, she decided that actually what she would do is switch it back on about 9 o'clock at night for half an hour, check what was on there so that she could get a good night's sleep. Because if she didn't do that, she'd worry that she'd missed something. So Sean, you were saying there about balance. For me, the word is harmony, not balance. How do these things fit together so that it feels good? I think that people say, well, I'm working now, and that it's work life, isn't it? As if work is not life. It's how people fit those things together. I suppose that's why it's called hybrid, isn't it? I'm back to that engine metaphor in my head. How did we fit the two parts together so that it's good for us? And
there's not been any real training on it, Andrew.
Sorry, what was that?
There's not been any training on it. I know that sounds like training.
Nothing.
What do you mean? But just pause that for a second. It's just like you've been used to coming in Monday for those that have. Now I've always worked in a way hybrid because I'm out and about a lot of time. So there hasn't really been a fundamental difference in the way that I operate it, apart from when that period where you were literally stuck at home. But for many, it was just a case of, right, you're set up, here's your office, you've got access to everything, crack on. And I said, oh, right, shit. What do we do?
Yeah.
What are the lines? What are the parameters? What can I do? What can't I do? What can I do my own accord? When should I be coming to someone for help? When should I say, actually, I need more? And all these kind of things that were never really kind of rolled out because it was a situation that was forced on everyone. But how many businesses have stopped and paused and said, right, if we're going to continue hybrid working, what we're going to do is we're going to set parameters and we're going to explain to everyone how this works.
I've got a question for you two guys. Can you think of anyone or any career or any work or any activity where this actually, what we're talking about now, is a complete irrelevancy? That actually we're only talking about it's kind of normal work, whatever the heck that means.
Yeah, okay.
Sure.
Are there people out there who are going, why are you talking about this? This is irrelevant.
I don't know.
There'll be a couple, yeah. I mean, the immediate one that came to me was doctors, medical staff. Because it's never been an option for them. Let's face it, it really hasn't.
What, to work from home?
Yes, it's never been in the cards for them, to be honest. The closest I came to it, right, was I had an appointment with a doctor during COVID, and it was a video call, but he was in the office. He was still in his office doing things because they have to be,
But is that not going more along the lines now of actually, do you know what we'll do over the telephone? Is that because there's a big kind of government debate about that, wasn't it? That
to be honest,
actually there's an issue here that where's the cutoff point? Because lots of people are complaining that they can't see anyone. It's all done over a phone call. And they're saying, well, are we now? So what they were trying to do was stop the unnecessary traffic into the NHS and into doctor surgery or into hospitals. People going for just things that they didn't really need, certainly not to hospitals, but even to doctors with. So they said, right, if we stop that, then that's great. But they said the negative that they didn't really sort of take into account was, what about the people who are genuinely sick that think, actually, do you know what? I can't see a doctor, or I shouldn't be bothering them because there's not enough space. And they're actually the ones that are really suffering. Has that not gone up?
So
That's
Helge,
maybe a different subject, actually.
that's a really interesting group. I didn't expect you to say that. But going back to your comment, Sean, about the radius of actually recruiting people, if GPs, for instance, are working from home, home can be anywhere. So isn't that a route to solving the GP problem? Because we've got a GP on an island in the West Coast who's got 200 potential patients, who could support somebody in Glasgow with 5,000 patients. We could break down barriers.
Sort of. I mean,
maybe we should put that as a white paper into the government and how they could possibly solve the NHS. If there are any NHS people out there, what are you guys talking about? You have no idea.
But I don't. But then back to my point about actually, you've got to start from the customer end, the patient end. Yeah. What's the best way of dealing with the patient? Sure. Okay, so GPs. Who else?
Well, there on that before we move on to it, there is a somewhat of a solution that's been provided in a different industry, but kind of similar, is a vet. The reason for it being my dog's been sick the last few days. I mean, he was sick last time you were here. He's still not better. But instead of taking him to the vet, we've got an app called VidVet, I think it's called, and you submit VidVet, yeah, short video. It came with, I don't know, some product that I bought. Anyway, essentially what happened is we typed in some symptoms and basically told the story of what's been going on with them. And within 25 minutes, a vet came back with a video for us explaining what it could be. Here's some things to try out. Let us know if it gets any better. And it's a constant communication with the vet. The benefit of it being it's 24/7 because the vets are linked in all across the world.
So that's good. I do get how that works. The flip side is where the doctors doesn't work. So I did hear
there's a little bit of a
explain a story where they had to get something that was pretty sensitive.
Yeah,
they had an issue there, and it was a lump. And this wasn't me. You know, when people say I had a friend.
Yeah.
This actually wasn't me. It was someone.
I believe.
But I'm not going to name them. But it wasn't me. But they had a lump, and they wanted to get it checked. So they had a video call with the doctor to check it, and they just couldn't get past it. Said that because in their mind they were like, "Is this a setup? You know, is this being recorded? And where can this end up? You know." So I probably wouldn't have thought of that, to be honest. I thought, doctor needs to check that. But
you said this. You said this was a modern issue. I can't give you a date on this, but I think this was probably 20 years ago, and I don't know if it still exists. I've not looked. There used to be a website in the States called Dr. Coop, drcoop.com. And Dr. Coop was AI. You went on, you self-diagnosed, you put in whatever your symptoms were, and you went through a system, and they said, okay, you need some antibiotics. Because it's the States, you can prescribe.
It's easy, yeah.
And the antibiotics were delivered to their door half an hour later. But it also had built in, it said, we don't know what's wrong with you.
Oh my God.
Disclaimer. We can't
with one of these doctors that's part of the Dr. Coop setup, find an appointment near you. And people sort of help themselves through that process, and quite readily. And I also met, and I can't mention any names because this is where I get shot. I actually met a very, very senior medical professional, in terms of BMA, very senior. And we were having
offline.
Yeah, and we were having a drink at an event that Prince Charles was at. He's of course now king, and he said to me,
that's great name dropping, by the way.
Yeah, well,
Charles and I were at the event. Sorry, when I say Charles, King Charles.
Yes, when I say Charlie Boy, I mean King Charlie Boy. And he was saying to me that he reckoned that GPs, so this is the BMA guy, not King Charles, BMA guy, he reckoned that
King Charles did not say this.
that GPs could cure 80% of their patients because there were 6 drugs and 6 illnesses that took up 80% of their time.
Wow.
And we were talking about them. I said, but I could probably do that as well. He said, yeah, you probably could. And then that would leave GPs to deal with what they really need to deal with. What they actually want to deal with is catching really bad stuff early.
Yeah, 100%, which is the point I made earlier. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And you don't want them to be. I mean, my mum used to go to see. She used to get double appointments with a GP because she wanted a chat. That's why you make,
Oh,
But there
so
are
you can
people
have
that
a
do
chat.
that. Yeah, they said.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
They
get
said
that.
there's a big portion of that.
But that's not what we want our GPs to
No,
do. We
no, no,
want
it's
them to
not.
do the
no.
things they want to do, which is diagnose people early and help them be cured.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
there's a lot in that. Okay, wow, that, I didn't
yeah,
expect this.
we've sort of digressed a bit in that one.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
tell you who I was thinking of, and it came to mind, and I can't remember what the example was. Probably a picture. I was thinking about artists. I was thinking about people like musicians,
Well, yeah, I thought actors,
makers.
musicians, things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, where
who it never occurs to them
because
one
it's a
nine
job,
to
right?
five,
Yeah.
or that there should be hybrid working or anything like that. And many of them, the folk that we either listen to or watch or whatever, just keep working. They just
Yeah.
keep, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
I tell you one that
And
definitely wouldn't work. Pilots.
yeah, okay.
No, you're probably right.
Train drivers. But I think train drivers
You know
do
what?
work from home, don't they? Is that not part of the problem?
I don't want
Oh,
to.
sorry.
Oh, geez.
Sorry, train drivers. That was
That was poor.
that was actually a joke.
You know,
We
I
know
don't
you
want to
don't work
dive
from
too
home.
much into it, but I reckon pilots would work at some point in the future, the near future, because
Oh, so now you're going all Elon Musk on us, aren't you?
Autonomous
not
plane.
necessarily. Well, your military have got drones, right? They're not in the drones,
No.
but they're
Would you
almost
go?
the size of
Would you go on an automated plane?
I don't know, maybe.
There's
Would you
no
go on an
way.
automated bus? Did
No,
you?
no chance.
No,
But
we're not
the
talking about
buses-
being automated. We're not talking about it being
So
automated.
autonomous.
We're talking about someone's at the wheel, but they're just not in
I
it.
meant autonomous as well. It was
Right, okay.
purely,
Yeah,
I
they're
used
just
the wrong
not.
word.
They're just not in it.
Okay, so
I-
they're remote
okay,
flying them.
I would not go on a remotely operated
Well,
vehicle.
Well, here's the question: when you're in a plane, do you even know the pilot's actually there? Have you ever
Do you?
seen them?
Don't put that in our heads, because now you're thinking like, what's it called? Final Destination and stuff.
It's true though. I mean,
Yeah.
I honestly don't know if I
Gonna
would
knock on
ma-
the door next time the plane,
Don't
I'm
think
taking a
it would,
plane,
no.
say, look, can you just confirm that there's a pilot in there and it's not
Okay.
AI?
Right, we're back to the model again. Think of the customer. The customer needs to know the pilot is there. Otherwise,
100%.
on the plane.
Yeah, but
100%.
let's say I'm not going to dive too much into it, but we're now venturing into the idea of like self-driving cars and things like that. Is it a good idea? But that's a different topic altogether.
Well, did you see they had the autonomous buses going back and forth over the Forth near me, and they had
No,
a
that's a
driver
straight
on them
line.
and
Yeah.
a kind of guard, so it had two people on them. And as far as I'm aware, I think they've stopped doing that because nobody was using them.
Because it should
yeah,
tell
that's
us, isn't
public
it?
opinion,
It's-
isn't it?
I know that it's going a straight line, but what if
Something
something
else
happens and it deviates to the left or right? Well, we've got a bit of a drop, right, into the
I
sea.
think they chose the wrong location for that. Don't go over a bridge.
Over
Over a bridge.
We're going to test this. Who wants to be up for a testing exercise
Yeah.
to jump on a non-driven bus over the Forth Road
I
Bridge?
said, bring it down a mile-long straight road. Then
The cars
you
do
might,
it.
you might try it.
Cars do it. So you've got cars with technology. You know, Audi does it, BMW, all
Tesla.
your German cars,
Mm.
Tesla, yeah.
Yeah.
Where they will pick up road markings
Mhm.
and indicators, and you can literally go like this, and they'll
Yeah.
they'll adjust you. But then my thing is that's relying. So it's about infrastructure. So theoretically that works. But before you do that and roll that out, you need to have the infrastructure in place. So you need to make sure that all your road markings and things are absolutely clear. Because you imagine that and it ran out.
Some
I've got-
paid all
Yeah.
that.
Great story for you. You know our friend Scott, finance friend.
Yeah.
He was telling me that he was in Houston last year, and now I can't remember whether he was picked up from the airport or he was picked up from his hotel to go to the airport, whichever way. But it was a Tesla that picked him
Yeah.
up. When he got to the destination, the driver said, "How was your journey?" And great, thank you very much. He said, "By the way, the car drove us here." He said, and that's in Houston.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I think Scott was really impressed with that. I think if the taxi driver had said before they left,
Yeah,
by
yeah.
the way, I shan't be driving today, it'll be the
I said,
car.
well, I shan't be coming in your car. Thanks for letting me know.
I don't know. I think
I thought that
Oh,
was
yeah.
great.
it's more morbid curiosity, I reckon.
I get you. Yeah.
I'd love to try
Morbid
it.
curiosity.
Morbid, yeah, because there's
Well, I've
there's
been in-
like the more technology a car's got, the more things that can go wrong.
Well, I've been in
So-
Indonesia.
I would
And
agree with
they are
that,
driven.
yeah.
They're driven by people, and I can guarantee you'd feel safer car here that's not it.
It's intense,
I remember
isn't it?
asking them, they just beat their horns at everyone.
Yeah.
Who's got right away? I remember saying, well, you beep, and
Yeah.
if someone moves, then you've got right away. And I'm like, no, that's not really the highway code type stuff. There's got to be a who's in the right and who's in the wrong, but it seems to work.
Well, that's
You know?
the thing. I mean, the
Kind of.
last thing
Apart
I
from
will.
the people that get killed.
Well, yeah. But the last thing I will say about this before we shift on is I think the thing that freaks people out is there's no override. You know, if shit goes down in a car or a plane or something like that, then the pilot or the driver is there, take control because they know what they're doing. If he is somehow in a warehouse, 200 miles away, still flying this thing, he's not in, like, there's certain things he's going to miss. Let's face it, there is.
Do you think it's a cultural thing? Just because we've come to believe that the human being is the trustworthy element of the system, when there isn't a human being there, the system's not going to work.
Have you seen Terminator 2?
Yeah.
That's what goes wrong eventually.
I honestly think it's because we need the human there because we need somebody to blame.
Yeah.
So you're assuming it's going to go wrong at some point.
I think you have to. I think you have to assume it's going to go wrong, don't you? Especially if there's no one there. But I'd still try it.
Where did we get to? So we
I don't know. We're talking about
working, and we're
You said that pilots couldn't do it, and I said they probably could.
Yeah, and well, if you listen to Elon Musk, he's saying about flying cars.
Never gonna happen.
Right. Listen to this. So if you said that, there's going to be flying cars here, the guy's a bit nuts. Just ignore him.
No, I don't think he's nuts. I think it's.
But when he says it, though, when he says it, you kind of think, really?
Yeah, because you trust him.
Well, because he said,
got the mind for it.
but he was really clear. He was always Joe Rogan, I think. And he actually said, no, but this isn't a maybe. We're already looking at this. It's already been developed.
Now, well, there's further questions involved. I mean, when he talks about flying cars, I mean, how far off the ground are we talking?
We're talking probably hovering, yeah.
Hovering.
Which I'm not sure the real upside of that.
There's none.
It's just a thing that's kind of cool. It's like hoverboards, isn't it?
Isn't that what kind of future seers or whatever they're called do? They kind of name something, and then
it happens. Look, like Nostradamus. Nostradamus literally sat and rolled out a heap of random shit and said, right, that's what he did all day. So this is going to happen, that's going to happen. So people don't say, right, hold on a second, I've just looked through Nostradamus's predictions, and 99 of these things didn't happen. What they pick up on was the 100th one said, no, but Nostradamus said that would happen. He was genuinely
playing the odds at that point.
Playing the odds. Fair play to him. I can't.
That's just called the law of big numbers.
Yeah, it's a lot of big numbers, right?
Somebody somewhere bumps into somebody. Yeah.
There's a lot of averages in that one. You'll be right 3 times out of 100 or whatever.
Okay,
but working from home.
Let's that, shall we? Wow. Yeah.
Let's draw this little session to a close, since we've just mentioned the law of big numbers, with some law of big numbers stories. Bizarre things that have happened to you. Think, well, that's unreal. What a coincidence. So here's one for you.
One as well.
Go on then.
I used to play hockey with a good friend, and we used to regularly go down to Glasgow to a Clydesdale tournament, and we're sitting there having a beer or whatever. And he asked me to do something I get arrested for now. He asked me to take a photograph of a schoolgirl playing.
Oh, you can't do that.
On a hockey pitch just across from where we were. So
I get arrested for that.
a couple of weeks later, I used to print photographs and so on. A couple of weeks later, I presented to him this photograph of this schoolgirl in the bar. I blew it up to the size of it and embarrassed him and so on. Okay, wind forward good few years, and my good friend and his wife are moving house from a flat in Aberdeen out to the countryside, and they're emptying boxes and so on and so forth, and his wife comes across this black and white photograph of this girl that I presented to many, and she goes, "What's this then?" And my friend goes, "Well, that's Andrew Burton. He took that." And so he said, "Well, it's quite interesting because it's me."
No. Wow.
No.
Yeah.
I find this sort of stuff really cool. That's
good, isn't it? That's really cool.
It's amazing. But what gets me is when people don't find this complete. I told you about this one, and I think I told you about this one as well. we were going a night out. It's far less grand than yours. And I was thinking of something to wear, right?
Sure.
And I couldn't think of something.
As you do, Craig.
And it was coming up to my birthday, right? Now, this is really bizarre because you guys know how I dress. I thought, do you know what I really I fancy? I've got, I can't say brand names because,
Sure.
Anyway, we're not getting paid. A zip-up shirt.
Since we start getting paid, we will start mentioning brand names.
We'll start mentioning a zip-up kind of shirt.
As well.
I thought, but I would never ordinarily wear something like this. So that night, I dreamt, right? Bear in mind, dreamt, not spoke. Dreamt that I got this by this brand, a zip-up white kind of loose shirt that I wouldn't ordinarily wear. Anyway, that morning, went and opened up my birthday present. Jamie bought me that shirt.
Wow.
I bought almost that exact shirt. Now, we hadn't mentioned a shirt. I don't normally wear shirts on it. I just thought I really fancy that because it would go with these. So I was talking about this, and Neve thought, oh, wow, that is really amazing. But Jamie and Rocco were like, oh, right, that's kind of cool. I'm like, no, it's not kind of cool. How's that possible? I dreamt something and it appeared in a present from my wife.
That's because you and Jamie have such a close relationship. She's even in your dreams.
That's
might have been talking in your sleep.
I wish I'd thought of that because that would have been a lot more romantic.
Yeah, that would have been a lot cooler than me.
Yeah. Did you accuse her of anything?
Witchcraft.
Yeah.
Witchcraft.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the way Andrew described it would be much nicer. I accused her of witchcraft. I said she was lucky it wasn't a couple hundred years later, or she would have been burned.
That's true.
But thanks for the shirt.
Go on, Sean.
Wow.
Finish with a good one.
A good one.
Oh,
I don't know if I could follow those two, to be honest. I really don't. But I like the idea of dreaming something, then it comes true.
I suppose it depends what you dream.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair, to be honest. Well, no, it's not so much about that. It's more, people call it deja vu.
Yeah,
deja vu being the real thing. Yeah, you've been in a situation where you think I've been here before, but you can't explain why. Yeah, I had the exact same thing in this room, weirdly enough, because I was sitting at this computer right here, and then I turned around and my dog sits on his chair right enough, and I said, I've done this before, but I hadn't even built it at that point. It looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's almost like I subconsciously built it because of that
parallel universe
in my head. But honestly, just little bits and pieces like throughout your mind. And you
Twilight Zone.
Well, it's the image propped in mind was in The Matrix when he said he saw two black cats go by and then what the hell.
It's a great movie.
It is good.
Is it real?
Well, it's a glitch in it. It's a glitch in the Matrix. That's what it is. And things like that happen to me almost on a weekly basis, I reckon. So that's the thing. It's not as good as what you guys have, probably because it happens to me so often.
Deja vu could be a whole other subject, by the way.
Yeah, I agree.
I have a feeling we've done it already, though.
Well done. And on that.
If you've managed to get to the end of this podcast, anyone that's listening out there, well done. I think we spent most of it working from home today. Another topic, another time. Please get in touch with us at Four Walls. We're going to be putting things up on LinkedIn and websites over the next wee while, and we'll look forward to hearing from you. Speak to you guys soon. Okay.
Cheers. See you later.